Welcome to Crochet Diaries. I'm Rainy, and in this episode, let's learn how to make our own crossbody bucket bags. I really call this my honeypot bag for the shape. Pretty cute. I had seen a post on Instagram of a pink tubular type of bag that seemed pretty easy to make, even for those who are quite uninitiated, which I was at the time. So I'm quite proud of it for that reason. It started off as a freehand project, but I think there's a lot here that, many of us might have utilized in other projects. So let us dive into what we'll need. The inspiration was made out of something that looked like recycled t-shirt yarn, which I think would still be a great option. I had made my first honeypot bag with this chunky variegated yarn with little streaks of like this radioactive green color. Unfortunately, I couldn't find it in stores. So instead, to kind of simulate the weight of that yarn, I'm gonna be using 2 strands of a lighter weight yarn. So for the yarn, use whatever color you're feeling. I happen to want to use green today, and the 4 balls that you see here were originally 2 100-gram skeins that I've separated. You definitely won't be using the entire 200 grams. I'd estimate under half that amount. You might be able to manage pulling from the inside and outside of a skein as well, but just be mindful of any tangles. So these balls were thrifted, so I'm unsure about the weight, but I will be using them with my 7mm crochet hooks, followed by the usual suspect scissors and a smaller crochet hook to weave in our ends, and I've marked as optional measuring tape and stitch markers. The measurements we'll be following today are 160 by 140 millimeters, or 6.29 by 5.51 inches, with a strap that measures 80 chains, or 120 centimeters, or 40.15 inches. The way we'll be working is we're going to start from the base, where we'll be crocheting like this disc shape, using a magic ring and then increasing in every round before we push out the back posts to start building the height of our bag. Once we've reached our desired height, we'll crochet the strap long enough to comfortably sling across ourselves. And you can measure this as you go, or you can use a measuring tape. That's always a good idea. To get started, make a magic ring and insert 8 single crochets into the ring. A tip: it may feel a little strange at first to be holding more than 1 strand of yarn as you work, so go slowly and try to keep a loose tension to avoid having to almost shank your work as we continue, and I say this from personal experience. So as we make our way to where we started, the way that I work is I don't tend to join my rounds. I think it can look a little obvious in the finished product. So in order to transition more seamlessly, I opt for using stitch markers whenever I start a new round or row, and I work in a continuous spiral. So when I start a new round, I do it in the first stitch of the previous round, if that makes sense. So for round 2, we increase into every stitch so that we total 16 stitches. Increasing means crocheting an additional stitch into your working stitch. So instead of 1, there's 2 stitches in your working stitch. For our third round, we increase into every second stitch, totaling 24 stitches. So the pattern it follows is like a 2 1 2 1 etc. pattern until we reach the end. I think something to not be too concerned about is also whether or not you start with an increase or not. I think as we build upon the base of the bag, it's a pretty forgiving pattern, so don't stress if you're not always starting with an increase. On to round 4, where we'll be increasing into every third stitch. So this follows a 2 1 1 2 1 1 repetition. For round 5, we're going to increase in every fourth stitch. That follows a 2 1 1 1 2 1 1 1 repetition, and continue with this pattern until you're happy with the diameter of your base. So for me, I end up working to an 8th round, and that measures approximately 160 millimeters in diameter, or 6.29 inches. A tip: as we're increasing, don't be alarmed if the shape of your base begins to look more like an octagon. We'll straighten that out towards the end. To close out the rounds, work a row of single crochet stitches to even out the shape. Now it's time to work a row of posts so that we're able to push out the bottom of our bag. Chain 1 to start. Insert your hook into the opposite side of your working stitch and then insert through to the front side of the next stitch. Pull up a loop through both stitches, yarn over as usual, and pull through. I'll demo this a few more times for you to see, and I'll also share a Jada and Stitches video below where she followed this exact process to crochet a basket. Once you come around the end of this row of posts, to begin building the height of your bag, continue to work within the round. Something I did as I was building the height of this bag was to introduce a secondary color, and how I did that was right as I was beginning a new round and before I would pull through all of my loops, I would drop my existing color and then fed in the new color to then pull through all of my loops. And you're of course welcome to do that in your design as well. Okay, so to crochet the strap, we want to be working on our very last row of the bag, so bring out the measuring tapes if you have that handy, or eyeball it, rely on your intuition. And what we do is we start crocheting around the edge of our bag, and then we break away at the midpoint to start chaining our strap. That's going to start on one side, and then we're going to join it to the opposite side of the bag. So for my strap, I measure around 120 centimeters or 40.15 inches. That translates to about 80 chains in my case. And then once we've joined the strap to the other side of the bag, so what we're seeing right now is that our strap is essentially a bunch of chain stitches, which in my opinion is a little flimsy for a bag of this size, so I want to thicken it. And how we do that is we do a row of single crochets to add to those chain stitches. And then that will have us finish on the side where we began chaining our straps. And then from there, we'll resume our single crochets to round off the final row of our bag, just so that our edges are even. And then to finish, all we do is slip stitch and fasten off with another chain, and there we have our very own honeypot bag, or a crossbody bucket bag. Thanks for watching. Until the next one.